So when I'm picking books to study for Wednesday night and Sunday morning, I pick them way ahead of time. So I picked this book, Lamentations, months ago, but here we are in April and we're going through a global pandemic. We're going through many sufferings and different stresses and pain, and we're studying a book where this is reflected. I did not plan for this to happen. We just happened to stumble upon this book at this particular time. But I believe that God, he knew what he was doing when he placed this ideal upon my heart and my mind months ago. So here we are talking about this very, very depressing and sad book. If you read through the chapter, you know that there's not a lot of hope in this book. And because of that, and with that in mind, I want to have you think about this question for a second. Is it ever okay to be upset with God, or sad, or frustrated with God? And I think initially we're like, no, like that's not okay. But if you're reading books like Lamentations or even the Psalms, you're seeing people express this with God. And to bring it down to a human level, think about someone you love. Think about your mom or your brothers, or if you're married, think about your husband or your wife. Is there ever frustration? Is there ever times of sadness? Is there ever times of grief in a relationship like that or like these? And the answer is yes, because we are human beings and we experience emotions, and intimate relationships bring about these types of emotions and feelings. So this is what this book of Lamentations is about. It's a collection of poems reflecting a time of pain, a time of exile, and a time of frustration. So this book is the time setting is in 2 Kings chapters 24 through 25. You can take a look at that and kind of get some context. So it's a collection of how these people are feeling at the time. And the first part of chapter 1, verses 1 through 11, is talking about the fact that the Babylonians have come and conquered God's people. And look at verse 1, chapter 1. How deserted lies the city, one so full of people. So it used to be full of people, and now like a widow is she, who once was great among the nations. She was queen among the provinces, but has now become a slave. So in this chapter, Jerusalem is described as a woman who used to be a queen, but now is a slave. Look at verse 2. Bitterly she weeps at night. Tears are on her cheeks. Among all her lovers, there is no one to comfort her. All her friends have betrayed her. They have become her enemies. And why has this happened? Look at verse 5. The Lord has brought her grief because of her many sins. So this is the problem with God's people. They have not submitted themselves to him, and because of that, they have to be judged and they have to suffer the consequences. And this book is expression of that. And it is not an easy thing to go through. It's never sweet to have to be disciplined. It's a sour process, but it's a necessary process. So the first part of the book is the reflection of the conquering, and the second part is Jerusalem calling out to God for help, letting them know that, hey, God, we recognize that we have sinned, we recognize your righteousness, and we recognize our need for you. Look at verse 18. The Lord is righteous, yet I rebelled against his command. So it takes some humility to recognize your faults and to confess your sins, and that is happening there. So some takeaways. What we're going to see throughout the rest of this book is, first of all, God can handle our raw emotions. He can handle what we're feeling, and he can handle us expressing those things to him, and that is welcomed. When you have an intimate relationship with God, it's welcome to express all levels of emotions with him. Second of all, sin enslaves. We see in the beginning there, Jerusalem was described as a queen, but now Jerusalem is described as someone that is enslaved. And this is what sin does. We see this in the New Testament. Sin enslaves. And lastly, life without his presence and protection is not life at all. Without God and his protection and his presence in our lives, we see destruction like what we see in Lamentations. So some things to think about. We're going to dive more into this in our Instagram live and our YouTube live session. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this has helped you understand this book.